So I want to talk about these forest fires that are burning all over Canada, and I want to pinpoint the cause of these fires. A lot of people say, oh, it's climate change and global warming and all this stuff. But, you know, there's more to it than that. There's definitely more to it than climate change and global warming and whatever you want to narrative you want to throw in there, because we had big burns many years ago all over Canada and all over the world, and we are getting so many burns, but they're really vicious at the moment. A lot of stuff that I do on this channel, I get some of the information from people who talk on the radio. What I heard today made me look a few things up specifically around the logging industry. Just have a listen to this, guys.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I think the carbon tax has a big impact on why the fires are burning. That's because Canada's wood exports have dropped by $1 billion this year. So that means that the carbon tax is forcing, these logging industries to close up shop. And it's not a Liberal Party member walking around the forest clearing it for people. It's loggers. When they cut that wood down and they move that wood around and they clear the forest out, that's helping prevent forest fires, in my opinion. I could be wrong, but I think that by adding carbon tax to that industry is what's causing these problems.
There we have a caller calling in to the 6:40 a.m. show, saying that carbon tax, in his mind, is the cause of the forest fires because it slowed down the cutting of the forest and the export of logs and wood, timber. So I did a little bit of digging just through that route, and I found this. So I found an article written by KM Lumber, and KM Lumber have indicated that Canada has decreased 10% of the exports of lumber in 2022. Hold on a minute. That's better. In 2022, Canada's exports of lumber contracted 10.3% to 33.6 million M3. I don't know what M3 means. The value of exports decreased 20% to 10.8 billion. According to Lesprom Analytics, the average price of lumber lost 11% to 321 per metric of M3. Canada decreased exports of lumber to the US by 6.5% to 30.4 million in 2022. Supplies to China fell by 40% to 1.1 million M3. I don't know what M3 means. And export, if you know what M3 means, just leave us a comment, please. And exports to Japan were less by 37% to 947,000. So there you go. That's actually from a lumber company explaining that their exports have dropped. So if they're not out there cutting as many trees in the forests, not to mention they don't just cut trees down and then drag them away, they clear the forest as well. And so then you've got the thing that there isn't as many people working on the forest. Now, I'm not an expert on forests, and I can't say I'm an expert on this. If you know more, again, leave us a comment about this, because this needs discussing. I think we need to discuss, not just say,
oh, forest fires are everywhere. Carbon tax, more carbon tax, tax everyone, stop everyone driving cars, because that's causing forest fires. No, he's doing it that way.
It's not. I don't think it is. I don't think it's to do with climate change. It's to do with forest management and managing the forests properly. Here's an article. Look, here's another article I found while I was looking for the logging thing about some goddamn Liberal MP in British Columbia, right? He's saying BC MP introduces motion to end old growth logging on federal land and ban all exports by 2030. Imagine if you didn't cut any of the trees down at all. You didn't have anyone managing the forest at all. Nobody's going to go in there and manage the forest. No one's going to cut trees down. You cut trees down, you can separate one area of forest from the other area of forest. Like I said, I'm no expert, but I know that if there's a big gap between two forests, the fire is going to it's going to struggle to. That's why they have burn-offs. It's going to struggle to jump across the forest. So this MP, Liberal MP, obviously, MP Patrick Wheeler, has introduced a private member's motion urging the governments to stop old growth logging on federal lands and end the export of old growth products by 2030. So he wants to stop cutting down the old stuff that's rotten, probably rotten, and falling to the bottom of the forest, gathering and making, you know, that then is heating up and making lovely kindle to make a fire by the end of the export of old growth products by 2030. A member of parliament from British Columbia has introduced a private member's motion urging the government to stop old growth logging on federal land and export the old growth products from Canada by 2030. Liberal MP Patrick Wheeler, who represents West Vancouver's Sunshine Coast, sea to sky country, says the motion would help protect old growth forests, which are tools to combat climate change and iconic parts of Canada's natural heritage. When we cut down old growth forests, it's irreplaceable and it's inherently unsustainable. That's easy for him to say. So we really need to focus on supporting communities and forestry practices that are going to be sustainable in the long term, Wheeler told CBC News. Yeah, but isn't cutting and trimming and sorting these forests the best way to manage the forests? Or am I just on the wrong track here and just leave the forests to manage themselves? Yeah, maybe the forests will manage themselves and fix themselves. A little bit like inflation will fix itself. Yeah, that always works. Anyway, and now I've mentioned the carbon tax. Let's just have a quick listen to what this guy said on the radio, and then we'll leave it there. Till next time, guys.
640 Toronto, you go ahead.
I couldn't agree with you more with regards to, nuclear and other forms of energy. The misappropriation of the money spent is what really bothers me with the government. I have relatives in Kelowna, and if it can account for where this carbon tax is going, and we're all getting taxed to death with this carbon tax, although people tend to forget that 20,000 years ago, we had a kilometer of ice over us here in Ontario, and in the last ice age. Anyway, climate change it always changes. The money, if it's not misappropriated and goes to something good and meaningful, like helping fellow Canadian citizens, then I'm all for it. But I'm just flabbergasted at the misappropriation of the taxpayers' dollars by government. It's just awful.